Welcome to History with Herodotus, where we delve into the vast expanse of human experience, uncovering the intricate tapestry of events that have shaped our world. Today, we embark on a fascinating journey through the history of the Homestead Act, a landmark legislation that would forever alter the landscape of the United States. As we venture into this captivating narrative, imagine yourself standing amidst the rolling hills and vast prairies of 19th century America, where the promise of land and opportunity beckoned to countless individuals seeking a better life. In the early 19th century, the United States was undergoing a period of rapid expansion, with the Louisiana Purchase of 1803 and the Mexican-American War of 1846 to 1848 significantly increasing the country's territory. As the young nation stretched its boundaries, the question of how to distribute this vast land became a pressing issue. The idea of granting land to settlers who would cultivate and improve it had been floated by various politicians and thinkers, including Thomas Jefferson, who envisioned a nation of yeoman farmers. One of the key figures instrumental in shaping the Homestead Act was George Henry Evans, a journalist and activist who championed the cause of land reform. In 1825, Evans began advocating for the idea of free soil, arguing that the government should provide land to settlers without requiring them to pay for it. His crusade gained momentum over the years, with Evans founding the Working Men's Party in 1829 and publishing numerous articles and pamphlets on the subject. As the debate over land distribution intensified, other influential figures entered the fray. Senator Andrew Jackson, a staunch supporter of westward expansion, introduced a bill in 1830 that would have granted 160 acres of land to each settler who agreed to farm it for 5 years. Although the bill ultimately failed to pass, it marked an important milestone in the evolution of the Homestead Act. The mid-19th century saw a significant increase in migration to the United States, with thousands of immigrants arriving from Europe and other parts of the world. Many of these newcomers were drawn by the promise of land and opportunity, but they often found themselves at the mercy of speculators and landholders who controlled vast tracts of territory. The need for a comprehensive land policy became increasingly urgent as tensions between settlers, Native American tribes, and the federal government continued to escalate. In 1851, Senator Andrew Johnson introduced another bill aimed at providing land to settlers, but it too failed to gain traction. However, the idea of homesteading continued to gain support, particularly among radical Republicans who saw it as a means of promoting social and economic equality. The Kansas-Nebraska Act of 1854, which allowed new states to decide for themselves whether to permit slavery, further heightened tensions over land use and distribution. As the country careened towards civil war, the issue of homesteading remained a contentious but vital concern. In 1859, Senator Samuel Collins introduced a bill that would eventually become the foundation of the Homestead Act. Although the bill did not pass at the time, it marked an important turning point in the long and winding road towards the legislation's eventual enactment. As the United States teetered on the brink of civil war, the homesteading movement gained momentum, with Senator Samuel Collins' 1859 bill serving as a catalyst for the eventual passage of the Homestead Act. The election of Abraham Lincoln in 1860 brought a new wave of support for the legislation, as the president-elect had long been an advocate for providing land to settlers. On May 20, 1862, Lincoln signed the Homestead Act into law, marking a pivotal moment in American history. This landmark legislation granted 160 acres of land to any citizen who agreed to farm it for 5 years, with the option to purchase the land after 6 months for a mere $1.25 per acre. The impact of the Homestead Act was immediate and far-reaching. Between 1862 and 1865, over 20,000 homestead claims were filed, with settlers flocking to the Great Plains and other regions to stake their claim on the American frontier. One such settler was a young Norwegian immigrant named Ole Rolvag, who would later become a renowned author and chronicler of the American immigrant experience. In 1880, Rolvag filed a homestead claim in South Dakota, where he struggled to cultivate the land and raise a family amidst the harsh conditions of the Great Plains. His story, like those of countless other homesteaders, was one of perseverance and determination in the face of overwhelming odds. As the years passed, the Homestead Act continued to shape the course of American history, with over 1.6 million homestead claims filed between 1862 and 1934. The legislation played a significant role in the westward expansion of the United States as settlers pushed beyond the Mississippi River and into the vast expanse of the Great Plains. However, the Homestead Act also had a profound impact on Native American tribes who were forcibly removed from their lands to make way for white settlers. The Dawes Act of 1887, which divided Indian land into individual allotments that could be sold to non-Native Americans, further accelerated the loss of tribal lands and the erosion of Native American culture. On January 1, 1863, the Homestead Act went into effect, with the first homestead claim being filed by a man named Daniel Freeman in Gage County, Nebraska. Freeman's claim marked the beginning of a new era in American history, one in which the federal government would play a significant role in shaping the country's agricultural landscape and its treatment of Native American tribes. As the years passed, the Homestead Act would continue to evolve, with amendments and revisions aimed at addressing the challenges faced by homesteaders and the impact of the legislation on Native American communities. The winter of 1862 to 1863 proved particularly harsh for many homesteaders who struggled to survive in the face of blizzards, droughts, and other natural disasters. In Kansas, a severe drought in 1864 forced many settlers to abandon their claims, while in Minnesota, a series of devastating prairie fires destroyed countless homesteads and left families without shelter or livelihood. Despite these challenges, the Homestead Act remained a powerful symbol of American opportunity and resilience, as thousands of settlers continued to flock to the Great Plains and other regions in search of land and a better life. By 1865, the Homestead Act had already begun to transform the American landscape, with vast tracts of land being converted into productive farmland and ranches. The legislation also played a significant role in shaping the country's transportation infrastructure, as railroads and highways were built to connect remote homesteads to markets and other population centers. As the United States emerged from the devastation of the Civil War, the Homestead Act stood as a testament to the power of government policy to shape the course of American history and the lives of its citizens. In 1866, Congress passed the Southern Homestead Act, which provided land grants to freed slaves and poor white farmers in the South. This legislation marked an important milestone in the Reconstruction era, as it sought to address the economic and social inequalities that had been perpetuated by slavery. However, the Southern Homestead Act ultimately proved less effective than its predecessor, with many African American homesteaders facing intense racism and violence as they attempted to claim their land. As the years passed, the Homestead Act continued to shape the course of American history, with its impact felt from the Great Plains to the White House. On July 17, 1876, President Ulysses S. Grant signed the Desert Land Act, which provided for the sale of arid lands in the western United States at a rate of $1.25 per acre. This legislation marked an important turning point in the history of the Homestead Act, as it acknowledged the limitations of the original law and sought to provide new opportunities for settlers in regions where agriculture was more challenging. The summer of 1877 proved particularly significant for the Homestead Act, as a series of violent confrontations between homesteaders and Native American tribes erupted across the Great Plains. The Nez Perce War, which began in June of that year, marked one of the most devastating conflicts between the federal government and Native American tribes, with hundreds of lives lost on both sides. As the United States continued to expand its territory and assert its authority over Native American lands, the Homestead Act remained a powerful symbol of American ambition and expansionism. By 1880, the Homestead Act had already begun to transform the American West, with thousands of settlers establishing themselves on the Great Plains and other regions. The legislation had also played a significant role in shaping the country's agricultural landscape, as vast tracts of land were converted into productive farmland and ranches. However, the Homestead Act had also contributed to the displacement and marginalization of Native American tribes, who were forcibly removed from their lands to make way for white settlers. The winter of 1880 to 1881 proved particularly harsh for many homesteaders who struggled to survive in the face of blizzards, droughts, and other natural disasters. In Texas, a severe drought in 1883 forced many settlers to abandon their claims, while in Oklahoma, a series of devastating prairie fires destroyed countless homesteads and left families without shelter or livelihood. Despite these challenges, the Homestead Act remained a powerful symbol of American opportunity and resilience, as thousands of settlers continued to flock to the Great Plains and other regions in search of land and a better life. As the years passed, the Homestead Act continued to evolve, with amendments and revisions aimed at addressing the challenges faced by homesteaders and the impact of the legislation on Native American communities. On February 8, 1887, President Grover Cleveland signed the Dawes Act, which divided Indian land into individual allotments that could be sold to non-Native Americans. This legislation marked an important turning point in the history of the Homestead Act, as it further accelerated the loss of tribal lands and the erosion of Native American culture. In 1890, the Oklahoma Land Run marked one of the most significant events in the history of the Homestead Act, as thousands of settlers rushed to claim land in the newly opened territory. The Land Run, which began at noon on April 22, 1889, marked a chaotic and often violent scramble for land, with many settlers facing intense competition and conflict as they sought to establish themselves on the American frontier. By 1900, the Homestead Act had already begun to wind down, with many of its provisions having been superseded by newer legislation. However, the law's impact continued to be felt across the United States, from the Great Plains to the White House. As the country entered a new century, the Homestead Act stood as a testament to the power of government policy to shape the course of American history and the lives of its citizens. In 1912, the Homestead Act was finally repealed, marking the end of an era in American history. However, the law's legacy continued to be felt, with many of its provisions having been incorporated into newer legislation aimed at promoting agriculture, conservation, and social justice. As the United States entered a new century, the Homestead Act remained a powerful symbol of American opportunity and resilience, as well as a reminder of the complex and often fraught history of the country's relationship with Native American tribes and the land itself. The Homestead Act had played a significant role in shaping the course of American history, from the Great Plains to the White House. Its impact could be seen in the thousands of families who had established themselves on the American frontier, as well as in the displacement and marginalization of Native American tribes. As the United States continued to evolve and grow, the Homestead Act remained an important reminder of the power of government policy to shape the lives of its citizens and the future of the country itself. Years later, the Homestead Act would be remembered as a landmark piece of legislation that had helped to shape the course of American history. Its impact could be seen in the countless families who had established themselves on the Great Plains and other regions, as well as in the enduring legacy of conflict and displacement that it had left behind. As the United States continued to grow and evolve, the Homestead Act remained an important reminder of the complex and often fraught history of the country's relationship with Native American tribes and the land itself. As the United States continued to navigate the challenges of the 21st century, the legacy of the Homestead Act remained an important part of the country's history and identity. The law's impact could be seen in the thousands of families who had established themselves on the American frontier, as well as in the ongoing struggles of Native American tribes to protect their lands and their way of life. As the 20th century progressed, the Homestead Act's provisions continued to shape the American landscape, with thousands of families still claiming land under its terms. However, by the mid-1900s, the law's impact began to wane as the majority of the country's arable land had already been settled. In 1958, Congress passed the Alaska Statehood Act, which included a provision that allowed for the homesteading of land in Alaska, marking one of the last major expansions of the Homestead Act. The Homestead Act was eventually repealed in 1976, with the passage of the Federal Land Policy and Management Act, which shifted the focus from settlement to conservation and environmental protection. This marked a significant turning point in the country's relationship with its land, as the government began to prioritize preservation over development. Today, the Homestead Act is remembered as a pivotal moment in American history, one that shaped the country's identity and informed its values. As historian William Cronin has noted, The Homestead Act was a powerful symbol of the idea that the United States was a land of opportunity, where anyone could come and make a new life for themselves. This idea continues to resonate with Americans, even as the country grapples with the complex legacy of the Homestead Act, including its role in the displacement and marginalization of Native American tribes. The Homestead Act's impact can still be seen in the thousands of families who continue to live on land that was originally homesteaded by their ancestors. For example, in Nebraska, where over 90% of the state's land was once homesteaded, many families still proudly claim their connection to the land and the pioneers who first settled it. The law played a significant role in shaping the country's economy, politics, and culture, and its impact continues to be felt today. As historian Patricia Nelson Limerick has observed, the Homestead Act was not just a land policy, but a social policy, one that reflected the values and aspirations of the American people. In conclusion, the Homestead Act stands as a testament to the power of government policy to shape the lives of its citizens and the future of the country. Its legacy serves as a reminder of the complex and often fraught history of the United States and the ongoing struggles of Native American tribes to protect their lands and their way of life. As we look to the future, it is essential that we remember the past and strive to understand the ways in which our actions today will shape the world of tomorrow. That's all for today's History with Herodotus. Remember to like, share, and subscribe, and until next time, remember that to understand the present, we must first understand the past.